That's right.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. First item is the acquisition of fire and EMS apparatus. Mr. Harkness.
Members of the board, obviously in front of you, you have the memo that Stephanie and I drafted, reference fire apparatus. Stephanie will talk to the financial side of it, and I'll talk to a little bit of history, why, and recommendations, and why we made those recommendations. Again, just to give you a little bit of history, a line item was created in 2010, that's line item 1026 in the CIP, and that was to fund fire apparatus for both the county and the volunteers. In the past, there was a history of the county providing financial assistance to the fire companies as they purchased a piece of fire apparatus. Typically, it was in the $150,000 to $200,000 range. Once we had the economic downturn, that funding source stopped.
Did we actually help some of the units with $150,000 towards their apparatus?
Yes. Orange received $200,000, and I believe Mine Run and Gordonsville each received $150,000. Let me keep going with that, or just keep
going, yeah.
Yes, like I said, that was a past practice, and then again.
So, okay, but in those cases, the apparatus remained titled in the
Correct.
volunteers.
We provided a financial donation.
Okay, all right,
for
gotcha,
the assistance
gotcha.
of purchasing a piece
Gotcha,
of fire
gotcha,
apparatus. Again,
all right.
the economic downturn hit, that funding source stopped. We were under the belief through our billing company that we were gonna be able to bill for fire services, and that was gonna fill the void, and obviously, as we well know, that never happened.
Okay, thank you.
Out of all of the fire departments, Barbersville was the only company that did not receive any financial or assistance or a piece of apparatus. Again, Orange, Gordonsville, Mine Run received financial assistance. Lake of the Woods and the Orange Volunteer Fire Department both received a ladder truck. Why are we making these recommendations? Well, the first is through the recent fire and EMS study. They recommend that the county begin purchasing fire apparatus. Our strategic plan that will soon be released to y'all. One of the recommendations from that committee was, again, for the county to begin purchasing fire apparatus. And the reason being is what the fire chiefs are looking at and what the model is throughout the state, and I believe the nation, is instead of providing money all the time, we would pick up certain expenses. Fire apparatus obviously is probably the most, except for the building, is probably the most costly expense to any volunteer agency. By doing so, that's gonna allow them to focus on their core mission, which is either gonna be fire or EMS service. It's part of the recruitment and retention study when we looked into that. One of the reasons people leave the volunteer services is because they're doing more fundraising than they are running calls. The other thing is we're providing that financial assistance. It's gonna free up some money that the volunteer companies are gonna be able to do to provide incentives to their members. And I believe, and this is my personal opinion, that a fire and EMS company can do far more than the county ever could to provide us incentives. We made 3 recommendations in the letter, and the first is, as stated, Barbersville has not received any assistance from the county. They have a tanker that's in 1988, and we recommend that tanker be replaced. The second recommendation is for the county to purchase an engine for the Department of Fire and EMS. That engine would be stationed at the Roachville station. That station was built with a bay to accommodate an engine. The eastern end of the county is suffering from staffing shortages. We currently provide assistance personnel-wise to Lake of the Woods and Mine Run. If we're to pick up an engine from Mine Run, it's 4.8 miles, takes us about 8 minutes to get to the station. And obviously having a piece of fire apparatus in the station that both the career and volunteers could use would be advantageous and improve response times for the 522 corridor and portions of Route 20. The third is to hire a consultant to provide a third-party evaluation of our current fire and EMS fleet. The consultant would again come in, look at the fleet, determine its condition. They would evaluate the needs. Do we have too much or too little of a certain type of fire or EMS apparatus? And most importantly, they would develop an apparatus replacement plan that we could follow moving forward.
My first reaction in looking at this, John, was I wonder why you didn't put that first instead of third.
Well, right now, it's.
Why did we start buying and then start figuring out what we need? I don't, I don't mean that quite the way it sounded, but.
I know exactly where you're coming from, but, most importantly, in my opinion, there's two short-term needs. Barbersville, there's no mistake, they have a 1988 tanker, it needs to be replaced. We don't need a consultant to, answer that. My professional opinion, we need to provide an engine for the county staff, to improve that response times on Route 20 and, that 522 corridor. We're providing assistance to 2 volunteer fire companies. We aren't making the best use. Let's put it this way, it's not a very efficient system of providing service delivery to the citizens. It's just a matter of time before we're gonna become more and more involved in the fire service, as far as fire delivery. And again, in the eastern Indian County, a lot of days, we provide the majority of that, fire service, especially Monday through Friday. We need to prepare for that because again, if we decide to make these purchases, this is a very time-consuming process that, you know, you're looking a year, 18 months, even 2 years out, depending on how this process works. Now is the time to start making those decisions, or at least having those discussions.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, there's one edit I'd like to make to the proposal. In working with Chief Harkness on this, there was a significant bit of history that I certainly wasn't aware of, and I apologize about the ownership of the tanker for Barbersville. I think that in the past, the county had given a cash contribution, and Barbersville or any of the other agencies would acquire the apparatus, and they'd be titled in that volunteer company's name. I was just following the practices that had been with the ladder trucks, that they were acquired, titled, and maintained by the county now, and I was just making an assumption that would be the preference of the board going forward. But having said all that, that's a decision that has not been made as to how the apparatus would be titled.
In those cases, though, when the apparatus remained entitled to the volunteer companies, the county didn't pay for the whole ambulance or for the whole apparatus.
It did.
Huh?
The county paid for the apparatus.
For the whole apparatus?
For the 2 ladder trucks.
The 2 ladder trucks, but they're still titled in the
Right, well,
county.
the other apparatus that was purchased by Gordonsville, Mine Run, and Orange Volunteer Fire Departments, we provided a portion of that, between $150,000 to $200,000.
Okay, but not, but didn't buy it outright?
Correct. In
Okay.
fact, they probably,
Okay, all right,
they exceeded our donation.
okay, all right.
I guess one thing, and just having some history in it, the tanker, obviously, any rural departments, you need a tanker. And then engine companies, typically, you're gonna be hard pressed to have too many engines. But specialty pieces are the ones that you typically could have too many of. I guess is where, getting a consultant, they're not gonna tell you, oh, get rid of 5 of your engines. They're gonna tell you to get rid of a squad or, a brush truck or something like that is typically where they'd go with something like that.
Do we have the information? I've seen that. Mine Run has a beautiful new engine that they just got last year, I guess it was. Are we confident that a county-owned engine at Rhodesville is compatible with what's already at Lake of the Woods and Mine Run and the like? I mean,
Fire trucks are built to a certain standard, so they all are compatible.
I don't mean that. I mean, from a need standpoint. I mean, it's not that far from Rhodesville to Mine Run.
Well, the problem is.
County doesn't own it.
When you have people sitting in a station that can immediately get on a piece of apparatus and respond, you obviously have a quicker response time. Typically, and again, without talking with Nikki and drilling down into response times, during the daytime, we're challenged to get out in 10 minutes or less, and that's just to hit the road. And when I say we, the volunteer career system in the east end of the county.
Is that because we moved the EMS from Mine Run to Roseville, and now we need to?
No, because when we were looking at all that, one of the things we looked at was moving to the Mine Run Firehouse.
Right.
It was not, by a far stretch, was not
Yeah, no, that-
economical.
right, that-
So it's still a matter of having to go from one location to another, and then respond from there.
As I listened to the pager on my duty days, those guys at Mine Run, or at Rhodesville, 21 is out a lot.
They are a busy station, there's no doubt about that, but again,
But,
This
so
apparatus-
having a fire truck then when they're out on an ambulance call doesn't seem to make much sense.
well, that's where the volunteers can pick up that, piece of apparatus, because a lot of Mine Run's members live closer to that station than they do to their, current location. There's a lot of them that live on the northern side of, Route 20.
And you're saying that the call, the number of calls and their location would justify having two essentially new engines that close together?
I believe so, and the reason being is, you're gonna have, if they're in quarters, and that's an if, you can only handle one call at a time, and one of the discussions we're gonna have as we move forward, and whether it be this budget season or future seasons, is additional staffing, because the needs for EMS and, the fire service are growing, and, there's been several calls that, they might have made a significant difference in that area, and I'm not talking just property, I'm talking lives.
Well, to me, it's a different decision about the adding an engine as opposed to the tanker, which is a replacement and apparently one that makes a lot of sense. And the study, I guess, is something that probably makes some sense as well. But the decision to add the other tanker puts us that's a different kind of a decision process than a pure replacement.
There's no doubt, these are two entirely different decisions. One's a replacement, obviously, and that would be for Barbersville. For us, would be an addition, and the purpose is again to improve service.
Since this is a work session, we've got a couple of the representatives from the volunteers here. I'd like to give them the opportunity to have some comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if either of you would like to make a comment, or both, or all?
Well, I mean, John's right, staffing for everyone is probably at an all-time low. Daytime is hard for us, you know, in the volunteer service. Thank God all our people are back to work. For a while, they were all out of work, so I had tons of people responding to calls during the day. And we're working hard to entice retiring and career firefighters from Spotsylvania who now live in our area to assist us during the day. But I also agree that John's guys are running like crazy, so you'd end up having two pumpers who are brand new, not getting out of the station with the situation we're dealing with today. And we do have two pumpers, one that we're constantly doing maintenance on, that's the rescue pumper. It's just routinely broken. And I've got the old one I replaced that we're getting rid of, but right now it's purely a manpower issue, it really is. I'm not sure adding a new pumper in two different places, maybe a reallocation, I don't know, maybe we have way too much apparatus in the county, which I think the study is really would benefit us.
And one of the things that we talked about when we built a new station was Mine Run, to have the opportunity to put a piece of fire apparatus there for their members and ours, especially since we drive, and if you'd like to just comment on that.
Right, and when we started, I forget how many years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, was it, when we developed that grant? The county fire service and Mine Run agreed that with a new station, a new combined fire station, we would go combination, man the station together, keep the old station as a substation, so that we had plenty of room, we had a place to work on trucks. And of course that fell through, we didn't get the grant. So when the temporary solution surfaced on Route 20, it was proposed proposed to the membership about putting the old engine out there. They were reluctant primarily from the standpoint is they don't see that place as a fire station. There's nowhere to put equipment, nowhere to put hose. It's essentially a garage with bunk rooms and, you know, I can give you a whole list of reasons that they didn't wanna do it, but as it stood right now, they didn't want to because we had the new piece, we're still having problems with the old piece.
Okay.
So they were nervous about taking our only reliable pumper out of the station.
Okay.
And today, engine 21 again has been out of service for 3 days, so.
Bert, you have anything you wanna say?
Well, the issue that as he's discussing is an East End issue, but I can tell you that in general, the discussion that he's had with you, I'm very much inclined to agree with. I know that he was talking about the $200,000 that we got, that was for a $500,000 engine. We paid the other $300,000, but I can tell you how much the $200,000 meant. In terms of what he's proposing, I don't have any problems with it at all. In terms of the county purchasing apparatus and owning that apparatus, I think that's a wise decision for us. Speaking as one of the departments that has a county-owned piece of equipment, it's been a wonderful relationship. And that's through two different chiefs, because Jamie was there when they first came in. And, we've run the equipment, they've taken care of it. If we had a problem, we'd call and tell them what was wrong. I think, and I have to be perfectly frank with you, you're buying apparatus for 20 years out. The question you have to ask yourself, if you do purchase apparatus that goes to the volunteer companies, including Orange, are we gonna be there in 20 years, and what's it gonna take to get that back, to have a fire service? So I think you're making the right decision. In terms of the station at Rhodesville, that station would pick up some of our first due area. That area up and down the 522 corridor where there is some growth is a long way from anybody. Also, the area north of 20, True Blue area, is a long way from everybody. And that would cut the response times into those areas that are right now. Even if we were sitting in the station, we have area that takes us 20 minutes to get to, up and down the 522 corridor because it's just so far. So I think there's a lot of benefits there. I do think that John's talking about having a consultant come in. If you say you wanna do that, that consultant would be able to come in here and probably do a study in the length of time it took you to start speccing out this apparatus. So, he talks about a 3-step process. I think the steps could run on top of each other, and it would be very much to everybody's benefit to do.
Okay. Aaron?
I'm Aaron Lovell from Lakeville, and I just know Mr. Persia and Lee. We just had a couple of questions about it. Obviously, that area needs some help right through there, but we tend to think there's other ways to do it instead of the money that for the apparatus. What's the chances of putting a paid engine driver in mine run? An engine driver would take care of a lot of issues. Has at the lake, obviously, that was done years ago and helps us out when our medics, we do have that person driving a fire truck. So do we need to buy a $500,000 fire truck, $400,000, or can we get a used one? But what's the chance of putting a paid engine driver, 21, to quote, help out with staffing? Is it gonna help? That's something Chief Madonka would have to listen to on that. You know, 2 fire engines 4.8 miles from each other. You know, heck, miles, let's put another one between Rhodesville and Lakeville Woods. Let's put one between 522 and Spotsylvania. Let's put another one. If we're going 4.8 miles to the firehouse, that's awesome. You know, the ISO rating would be phenomenal in this county. Everybody would move here. Obviously, like Chief Hardy said, there is an issue with the runs, but I think we get a paid engine driver. That would cure a little bit of it. Of course, the staff, you got to pay for employee health benefits and such like that.
Okay.
But that's where we stand.
All right, thank you. Anybody else got any more comments they wanna make?
May I mention one other thing?
Sure.
A number of years ago, it was in the comprehensive plan. It was long before Jeff or anybody else was here. And for one thing, you're talking about not solving the problem forever. You're talking about a solution until something better comes along. Just like the station at Rhodesville right now, the rescue station, by your own admission, because of the way you set it up, is a temporary solution. The comprehensive plan a number of years ago called for 2 new stations, and that the Mine Run station would close and in some way populate those 2 stations with career people. One was at 611 and 20. The purpose of that was to provide better service in that area, plus to give a little quicker response into the Lakeville Woods area, and they're a little bit isolated except for Spotsylvania. And the other station, of course, would be at 522 and 20. And that would, if you look at the map, that would cover a terms of distances, especially to the north side of 20 and that gap in there that's growing between Lake of the Woods and Mine Run. I think the board should give, as a long-term look, should give a hard look to going back to that comprehensive plan idea, which was 611 and 20 and 522 and 20.
Let me add one thing also, Lee, I apologize. One thing I brought up is kind of ironic that Chief Rose and I brought up is the lake at 29, there's an engine and ambulance, at 23, engine ambulance, 21, engine ambulance, 25. Well, just 24, Gordonsville just has an engine. And I've heard a story, well, 25 is close enough to run there, and 23 is close enough to run there. Well, if they're close enough to run to Gordonsville, let's take the fire truck out of Gordonsville. So I think we should go for it, put an ambulance up there also, and help the citizens out there. Because if the guys at 21 are on the engine, that's one less medic unit we have in the county, and it keeps on bumping down, and this county's long, so.
One of the things that I'm thinking about as we talk about this study, the cost of a new engine might go a long ways towards paying for a station. And wondered if because that's one of the things I would hope the study would look at is, okay, here's your stations, the possibility of another station, and move along that way, and buy capability through that as opposed to another engine. That would seem to me to be.
What kind of help are we gonna get from the new station in Spotsylvania on 3? How does that work into the picture?
They're already responding to the eastern end of the county
Yeah.
on a regular basis.
We got a fire.
Well, my question is, how does that
not-
affect what we were talking about, 611 and up?
We're not. They are reducing their response to Orange County. They used to, if we called them, they came. I don't know the actual numbers, but if it's past a certain point, they no longer send anybody.
Okay.
And understandably, because imagine how busy Orange is, Spotsylvania. Y'all have gotten busier, right, Aaron?
I'm gonna respectfully decline the answer to that, I don't wanna mix my job.
Okay.
Spotsylvania has already implemented their new dispatch. So for Mine Run, they don't go out what they call the box. And the box is Route 3 and 20.
Right.
So anything on the other side of Route 20, they don't give us any help anymore. So my next closest unit is Culpeper, and at best, we can only hope for one pumper.
And what's actually happened is the tables have gone total reverse. Because Orange used to go all the time to the Belmont area, to the Wilderness area, and now they've built stations in both of those areas in Spotsylvania, but they do not come into Orange the way that they used to.
All right, well, I mean, my question was, how does that impact what we're trying to do?
Right. Well, I know one thing I've been looking for quite some time is with Stephanie's next presentation, GIS. I know there's a module in there that you can have, that you can purchase, that does planning for municipal buildings, for public safety, for whatever you want. And even though I think most of us that have ever been involved in public safety would agree that 20 and 522 and 20 and 611 are the two best candidates, rather than just taking our experience, if we actually had the tool to work with that showed us with scientific data, yes, this is where you need to build, would be a huge step included in all this.
Just real quick, and I agree with most of what Aaron's saying, but what we have to address is right now, we have avoidance service in that area. For whatever reason, again, Mine Run decided not to put a piece of fire apparatus in there. Mine Run's having problems during the daytime. The staffing at the lake sometimes is great, sometimes it's not, just as any other volunteer fire company. But by having that piece there, it gives us options. It gives us the options of our people taking it out, or the people that live too far from Mine Run Station right now to be able to pick up a piece of fire apparatus that's much closer. Is it a perfect solution? No. What we need is we need more people, and we need probably, as Bert alluded to, several more stations down the road. But for a short-term fix to improve service, I stand by my recommendation.
How severe is the issue of using that station there in Rhodesville for fire? I mean, it seems to be working okay for the EMS.
Is that, again, this is a temporary station, so does it have all the bells and whistles and all the storage area that we would put in a new station? No. Does it have the basic necessities to be able to accommodate an engine? Yes. That's why it was designed that way. Is it gonna be crowded in there? Yes, but we're trying to be fiscally responsible and come up with a short-term fix to get us out of, obviously, the building that we were at, and to buy us some time as we move forward.
Let me chime in
Sure.
here since I haven't said anything yet. I like to try to look for a break where I don't step on anybody. I could tell that wasn't going to happen, so. Several things here. We're dealing with several different issues. The Barbersville tanker, I think, is, from my point of view, fairly simple. My memory was that the county bought 100% bought the apparatus in the past. If they didn't, then I think it should really be, I feel the proper thing to do would be to give Barbersville the option. We can give you a portion of the money that you can use to buy a tanker, or if you want the county to buy it all, then it will be titled to the county. I think that's a
I'm okay with
reasonable
that.
and fair way of doing that. One of the things I'm very concerned about in all of this is doing anything which will dampen the enthusiasm of the volunteers. So I think we need to be very careful about not imposing things from the top and not having some discussion back and forth to find out what's preferred. The issue of the engine in Rhodesville and the consultant, I've been around a long time, and consultants usually, you don't really get much for it. If it's a highly technical thing, like a radio system or something like that, then consultants are very beneficial. But we've got 5 companies of consultants. We've got 5 companies of volunteers who do this. They know what trucks get ran the most and which ones are needed out on the job. And I worry about, again, imposing from the county saying, oh, we're gonna get a consultant. The consultant's gonna decide what we need. Maybe 20 years from now that needs to happen. I don't think it needs to happen now. And I think we need to leave as much of that decision-making to the local agencies as possible. There aren't massive issues out there in terms of things are not being done properly. We've got a manpower issue, but a consultant's not gonna solve a manpower issue. So we've got good people in every one of those companies. And occasionally things run off the track, and you might have a company that, does something dumb, but that happens. Even government does dumb things sometimes.
Oh, really?
And so I would like to see as much of that decision-making, as much of that, pondering and chewing it over and that whole decision-making process. I'd like to keep that in the local departments as much as possible.
Can I ask one question of the chiefs out there real quick on that exact subject?
Okay?
Gentlemen?
It's not gonna change my opinion.
No, I know. Gentlemen, what do you think is a reasonable time frame for the Chiefs Association to come up with what the consultant would do?
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the individual departments know what they need.
Oh, what they need, not
Yeah.
what, as far as planning for the future other stations or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about equipment needs.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Mr.
Okay.
Freeman, if I may, I don't want to give you the impression that I don't agree with a lot of what John is saying. My alternative proposal would be, and I apologize for not talking to you about this ahead of time, is we've got 3 pumpers sitting out there, my wagon 21, which is old, but it's in great shape. Maybe the answer is we take one of those pumpers, put it in the Roseville station, see how often it's getting out, how well John's able to get the pumpers out. I mean, they're bought, their own, there's no cost other than we'll probably need a little help getting some extra nozzles or whatever. But then we'll have something we can do statistically, both staffing and incident response and everything else. And then we'll see if we need a real need or another station.
I have a question, is, okay, why didn't this happen when the station opened? Since there were discussions about it.
Well, my wagon was scheduled to be sold.
Okay.
We had an agreement with the buyer to keep it long enough till the new wagon worked out its bugs. We all know how that goes. That deal has fallen through, so now it's available.
Okay.
And I'm more than happy to put it in there, but it's got no equipment on it. We transferred it all to the new wagon. So,
I guess that, take the next step of what you two were talking about there, that what I would like to see is, and I don't know if it's, you know, all departments, all, or the Chiefs Association, or how to do it, but at a minimum, it sounds like, Mine Run and you, John, and probably Lake of the Woods as well, should come up with a sort of a way forward, even if it's short term, such as the one you just suggested, of putting it there temporarily, figure out the staffing, and the like, and let's just see. Are your members, do you think they're willing to work out of that station in Rhodesville?
I've already talked to my members about the old wagon. They're more than happy to put it up there. They don't care about selling it. And in the meantime, if it does get replaced, then you're gonna own it and you can put it whatever station you want to. A new one, I'm talking about. So it gives you time for the planning and everything else.
I mean, that sounds like the next reasonable step to take, to me, on that issue.
I did not know that option was there.
Yeah, nor did I.
It just fell through.
Okay.
Nor did I.
That's-
Rather,
yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
In fact, I was led to believe otherwise, and that's why I'm in front of you. But obviously, that's the most economical solution. If we can come back to you.
What do we need in equipment to
Let's stop
stock
talking
the truck
about
up?
that.
Yeah, that's,
Just real quick on the consultants, Chief, does anybody wanna step up and say what needs to be said on that?
I support having a consultant or an outside person look at it, because in the volunteer service, there's a lot of emotion. And it's ours, we bought it, we fundraised for it, we never wanna give up ownership of it. So it's kinda like the consultant for the strategic planning, takes it out of our hands.
I don't,
Looks at it purely from an equipment standpoint.
I'm not sure they're consultants, I mean, even if consultants said, well, we ought to move this to here, to here, to there, I'm not about to do that. If somebody bought it, they have it, they get to keep it. Where a consultant might talk about is, okay, where does the county make future investments?
Right.
Whether they make it in, facilities, whether they make it in, new vehicles or new apparatus or whatever, that's sort of where.
It can't be that difficult
It's not.
to say, we have a county of 355 square miles, we've got X number of miles of road, you got this many people, you have this many houses. It's gotta be a fairly basic,
Yeah,
metric that's used there.
I
to
sort
say-
of blanched at the price tag of that,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we all agree that the thing from Barbersville, it's old, it's gotta be replaced. Let's,
and leave it up to Barbersville whether they wanna,
go with menu A or menu B.
yeah, whichever they wanna do.
Just
We
so
can
I
take
understand.
a piece of it.
The choice, Mr. Johnson said, either the 150,000 contribution now is cash, or if we do a lease purchase, then we would do a lease purchase for the entire.
What was the, you indicated there was some difference in the amounts. Why was there
What happened was, I believe Orange, and Bert, correct me if I'm wrong, Orange received $200,000. They increased the funding the following year. Two companies were buying apparatus. They decided to split the funding, and that's why they got 150 each versus 200. And then after that, the money cut off due to the.
John is correct. The plan was that the county, the first year, they would fund $200,000, which Orange got towards a $500,000 piece of equipment. We paid the other $300,000. The second year was gonna be $300,000, that was put into the fund, and it was split. The third year was gonna be 400,000, the fifth year was gonna be 500,000, and every year after that would be 500,000 a year towards the purchase of, in theory, one piece of tank.
So we're only several million behind.
Five hundred as far as the
Well,
eyes
but-
can see.
The 500,000 a year was under the assumption that there were 5 fire companies, and every year you would buy one new engine. That would cycle around to roughly 20 years' life of each piece of fire equipment, which is the lifespan that we tend to look at for a piece of fire equipment. Some go longer, Barbersville's tanker has gone a lot longer, but we tend to look at a 20-year lifespan. So the county's plan was to build up to a $500,000 a year contribution into the CIP. I'll use the word contribution, but allotment to the CIP, and that money would be used for the purchase of new fire apparatus, one piece a year. Remember now, $500,000 today doesn't buy fire trucks. Those days are gone.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that.
$1 million today doesn't buy ladder trucks.
Right.
Those days are gone.
Yeah.
And that's why we can't afford to do it. And, unless we just run one.
I mean, even those 2 ladder trucks we bought, nobody was gonna, the county was the only one who could afford that at the time we bought those.
Yeah, well,
They were $834,000 apiece roughly. One was a little more than the other. Your investment was $1 million apiece with the lease purchase.
And the, part of the reason
That
the
was
cost
$7
here was the recommendation of the consultant, because again, that recommendation is supported by the volunteer fire chiefs. I do agree with you, Mr. Johnson, with guidance from the board, the men and women of the fire and EMS service in Orange County can do this on their own, but I think what they need is some guidance.
well, my one thought, and I agree with you, Lee, is they bought the stuff. What they bought is theirs. And I don't think we're asking them to go, I should take my equipment here, although we thank you for moving stuff. But I think the question should be more, in the future, do I need this, or do I need something else? And that
And
sort
where
of thing,
should I put it?
not
Not
what you
whether I put it
already
at an
allocated,
existing
but-
station, or I combine a station with,
Yeah.
with
what-
fire and rescue, a lot of options.
I would float the idea that we, as far as the Barbersville tanker goes, that we give them an option of either, 200,000, which I think is a fair amount, because we're 10 years on
Okay.
from when this was done before, or the county will purchase it and it'll be titled to the county. That seems, to me, a fair
I think we got agreement, concurrence on that. Okay.
As far as the consultant goes, I just think that, I mean, $50,000, I just don't think we're gonna get $50,000 benefit from it. We might need $5,000 expertise from somebody, who does this kind of thing, but
Have we gotten an estimate for that 50,000, or was it, did we,
It's gonna be between 30 and 50. I mean,
have we talked to anybody and gotten?
I've gotten some rough pricing.
Okay, because we've talked about a third component here, how much ballpark are we looking at to outfit Mine Run's pumper?
Without
If it
seeing
gets
it, let's just say it's totally stripped.
Right.
Talking to, some equipment salesmen, you're probably about $60,000 worth of
How much?
ballpark, about 60,000 worth of equipment.
Yeah, between hoses,
Hose.
adapters, nozzles.
That's a consultant.
Right, that's,
I'd rather spend the money on the
I would
equipment
too.
than a consultant.
especially since that option's on the table now.
And I also think that over time if we can, through GIS or whatever, put some more data together, really see where the calls are, see how this works out with sharing facilities with Mine Run and so forth, and come back to, somebody made the point, there doesn't seem to be a pressing issue, in terms of where do we go, in the long term. We can't ignore the long term, but I think we should focus on the Barbersville tanker and figuring out the situation with Rhodesville and see what will work in collaboration with Mine Run and Lake of the Woods especially. That should be our focus for the next
I think
short period
it's
of time.
A very appropriate short-term fix to move forward.
All right. Any further discussion?
We have to finish that.
So we have that on the next agenda then? Or do we need it?
Well, in consultation with Barbersville and certainly Mr. Johnson, we'll have come to a decision on the tanker replacement. And then the the next step is to figure out what the upfit and the cost would be to bring forward the apparatus to the Rhodesville station. We'll bring that information back and find source of funds. And then the third piece was, I guess, starting after the GIS starts coming out with that module, start getting some metrics in here to understand calls and places and times.
Yeah, because I think a bigger picture looks at more, not just apparatus, it looks at locations too,
And personnel over time.
and personnel.
I have one last thing to ask then. If we're talking about looking at replacement gear to go on the truck, do we put the new gear on the old truck, or do we put the new gear on the new truck
I think it would be on the
and put the old gear on the old truck?
We're not.
What old gear?
Yeah. If it's ours, I just assume put the new gear on their truck, we're gonna, it's our responsibility to maintain it, et cetera, we just go
Okay.
ahead and
Well,
do
that, I
it
mean,
that
that's,
way, and then if you ever buy a truck down the road, you pull that gear off and you put it on the.
But I was actually gonna ask that question. Do we need either a lease agreement or to purchase the old truck from Mine Run to do that? Or are we gonna is it good enough compensation that we outfit the old truck and both use it? So that, you need to discuss how that, where there's a fairness in that.
Yeah,
I
John
think
and I'll get together.
You just let us get together and we'll bring something back.
Yeah, I think a simple one-page kind of use
Yes,
agreement.
yes, sir. And
Who
I've got
insures
gear,
it and-
some gear, I just don't have it all.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm okay with putting what I have on that piece.
Well, and just another thought for down the road. If it turns out that this is something that's used a lot and everything, the current reserve pumper is not much, correct? That's out at the training center.
Reserve pumper needs to be sold.
Okay, so it is very possible that this piece could end up as the reserve. Is that a,
Oh, obviously, if it needed to be, it would make, if
Right.
somebody was down a piece of equipment, it would make most sense to move it, but,
okay, but I mean, down the road, it could end up as a reserve pumper.
yeah, depending on its condition,
Okay.
yeah.
That's,
All right.
Okay, so just gonna recap a bit, we're gonna work out the tanker, we're going to, work out with Mine Run, use of, it's an engine, right? Correct, engine, we're gonna have a use agreement and then we'll outfit it with the county's, funds to outfit it. And then, the other is start getting into more of a metric analysis with call runs and things with the GIS. As far as the consultant, that's.
Off
we're not
the
mov-
table for now.
We're not moving forward at all in any way, shape, or form with that, so, all right, I think I got it, John.
Good?
Everybody, chiefs, all right, good? All right, good. All right, we have some direction.
Thank you, John.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks to all the
Thanks.
volunteers
Yeah,
as
thank you
well.
all.
Thank you, have a good day.
Surely. All right, next item is the update on the board supervisors' 2-year priorities.
that's it, but.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as I have done now, I guess about every 6 months or so, have come back with my assessment of where or what we're doing with regard to each one of the priorities you all developed in the spring of 2014. I'm certainly prepared to answer any questions. I'm comfortable in saying that we've either completed, have made significant progress, or about to start on any number of these priorities. I'm not uncomfortable kind of showing what work we've done to further these priorities. This could be uncomfortable an assessment if we weren't making progress. But, it's a report card, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll take silence as affirmation and we'll move on to the next real quick.
I just take it for silence forever.
Or silence is accepted. The next, we're planning to start the process of another strategic planning retreat. You all are on a biannual cycle, so every 2 years, and so that would put us in the spring. Tyler St. Clair has done these. I think the board agrees that she's done good work in kind of getting focused over this a pretty intense time period. She is on faculty of the UVA Senior Executive Institute, and she's waiting to get her schedule. Once she does, then we'll be able to narrow down weekends, and we're looking now at a Saturday and Sunday, maybe a partial Saturday, partial Sunday, or however you work it, but having it over the weekend seems to be, I think, a reasonable approach to doing this. And then any ideas of areas that you all would like to start having us think about in kind of setting this up for you all to work on? I know that's
Go back to B for that, I think.
Sorry?
Go back to B for that.
Oh. I mean, more of the same's fine, I seems,
Same verse, second verse, same as the first.
or,
I mean, do we, I guess my question would be, do we really need, particularly now, do we need 2 days?
Well, I think when we first did it, it was, we set it up for 2, and if we, or
There've been
one if
years
we
when we
needed
needed
to.
to, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, it's, I think we
It'll
sort of
depend upon
herded
the new
cats.
board.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Maybe Jim, me
I
and
was
Jim
gonna
should
say,
wait for the other 3 new guys, I don't.
Exactly.
You really don't want that.
Well, I mean, I think part of the answer to that would be once you see the kind of topics or ideas that people come up with over the next month or so, whenever we focus on it, it might tell you,
I think we can go back and, yeah, I think probably if we go back and look through what the status is on the various ones and any of those that we need to rethink, and then any other topics that
I
are of
mean,
interest.
I guess my thought is just we kinda know where we're pointed, so it's,
and we're not finished with
and
any
you
of
can
the
always
other.
schedule for Saturday
Right.
with a possibility of a Sunday if it was needed, but not, I'd hate to kinda just fill time just to make it, to fill up a 2-day schedule.
But we're known to talk enough to fill almost any
Well,
amount of time.
Well, the question is, I mean, if we're not deviating off our current path,
Right.
yeah, and how many new things do we really wanna add on, Mr. I don't have anything to do guy?
no, it's enough to do.
Okay, but, I mean, because we're talking about, once we finish the, Road 3 corridor, and talking about the corridor up here, you know,
And we got the radio system out there that's gotta be dealt with.
yeah, I think
You know,
those are the kind of things that we would add on, and I don't see doing many more initiatives, because
Not
No,
now.
no,
we
if you
have
look-
plenty to do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And if you look back at the ones that we did 2 years ago, you know, there are quite a few of them that are still work in progress, and.
That's why I was saying, going over the status of those.
And that may be well enough to just confirm the course that we're going on. This, you know, I agree. I mean, you don't need to think up new things to do. We've got plenty going on right now. But
Let's see what comes up in the next couple of weeks in terms of what, if anybody has any new topics or any new things they want to look at. But I'm not sure if we're going to follow this path, we probably need some time to just discuss it more than we can do in a board. And then, but I'm not sure we're going to need do we need a facilitator for that? I mean, she does a good
I
job.
think
My
she
answer-
does an
My answer
excellent
would always
job.
be no, but then that's just me.
Yeah, now,
Well, I had to be talked into it.
well, I did too.
And-
She did a good
And
job for us, both
she's-
times, 3 times now, I guess.
Yeah.
She, I think it is,
She
She
earned
would
her
keep us-
$1,000.
yes, she will definitely keep us on track and
All right,
moving along. So,
Okay.
and I don't think anybody's jogging up there this year, so we should be in good shape.
all right.
how about if I'll put this forward to either the last meeting in September, first meeting in October. If you all have individual ideas, just either let me know, email, voice, you call me, we talk about it. And hopefully I'll come back with kind of a list of topics. Some of them that just may be the ones that we're already on, to kind of get a universe of things. I agree with Mr. Goodwin. I think one of the priorities for the board, a new priority,
will certainly be the Orange-Gordonsville area plan that I think we get through budget season next year, and I think started that whole process, because it'll be
Need a
similar.
new steering group.
It'll be a new, it'll be a different process than what we had in Germanna Wilderness, but
I know.
Well, and I think there is, as Mark mentioned, the radio system, I think some conversations about how much of that do we
we're gonna
solve
have,
broadband problems and other kind of things?
we're gonna have some of that conversation as part of the budget cycle. But there are a lot of other components with that, as you all know, I'm working on, but I think broadband and using the radio system together is a big deal.
All right.
All right,
Anything else?
This was my solicitation. I feel I've solicited enough.
Okay,
and
let's break for meeting here in 10 minutes. Call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The published agenda, a couple items to be deleted. Item 5D, the minutes for August 11th work session and meeting. Any other changes to the agenda? Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I checked before we moved. Did anybody sign up for public comment before I? There weren't any when I was out there a minute ago. None? Okay, good. All right. Special presentation and appearances. Presentation of a resolution of appreciation for Marcia Poole.
Oh, my gracious. Oh, that's official. Oh,
That makes
so that makes it extra official.
Resolution of appreciation for Marcia Poole. Whereas Marcia Poole faithfully served the citizens of Orange County as a District 1 representative on the Library Board of Trustees for over 20 years, beginning her service in the early 1990s and serving for many years as Vice Chair. And whereas the Orange County Library Board of Trustees was formed for the purpose of providing free public library services for the benefit and pleasure of the citizens of the county. And whereas, in keeping with the intended purpose, Marcia Poole has made substantial contributions toward public library services and to the continued success and operation of the Orange County Public Library System, giving selflessly of her time and talents. And whereas Marcia Poole is known for her presence and participation at library board meetings, where she was always an active, engaged, and productive member, sparking conversation and creativity, and her sense of humor and love for her community will be greatly missed. And whereas Marcia Poole has at all times demonstrated a keen interest in the welfare of her community and its citizens, and has left an indelible mark on Orange County through her service, enthusiasm, and dedication. Now, therefore it be resolved on this 11th day of August 2015 that the Orange County Board of Supervisors hereby extends its admiration and appreciation to Marcia Poole for her determination, dedication, and devoted service on the Orange County Board of Trustees, Library Board of Trustees, and to the literacy and well-being of the citizens of Orange County. Signed, V.H. Frame, Chairman, Orange County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you
You're
very much.
the one that did all of this stuff.
It wasn't hard. Well, you like to read, it's not hard.
Well, you also, not only did you like to read, but a lot of other people seem to like it because of your services.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
There we go.
He's got some influence here today.
Hey Jeff, can you see that gets in the paper?
I work. You know anybody over there, Mark?
Person or two, yeah.
All right. Consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, Department Director Constitutional Officer Reports. Office on Youth Quarterly Report, Alicia Vines.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for letting me come again to talk about what the Office on Youth has been up to. First thing I want to chat about is the Virginia Juvenile Community Crime Control Act, and just kind of give you an idea of where we ended our fiscal year with the kids that we work with. For community service this year, we had 26 referrals. We had 42 total placements because they roll over from year to year, with 31 satisfactory completions with 929 hours done. We had a class called Thinking for a Change. We had 7 referrals for that, 12 total placements with 6 satisfactory completions, for a total of 61 sessions. The specialized services, we had 16 referrals, 19 total placements with 11 satisfactory completions with 69 sessions done. Substance abuse assessments, we had 13 referrals this year with 10 satisfactory completions. We have a couple who are still going through their assessment period. And for substance abuse treatment, we had 11 referrals, 17 total placements with 11 satisfactory completions with 118 sessions done by those juveniles. So we are very pleased with our numbers getting closer to the ones that are referred ending each fiscal year. We're trying to get them through a little faster, so we're very pleased with that. We held with Orange DSS on June 24th our Get Connected Orange. Our slogan was get plugged into your resources. It went really well. We had it at the Hornet Sports Center. We had over 30 service providers within or around Orange County and over 60 visitors from 10 to 3 that day. We provided a light breakfast. We also provided lunch to the vendors and to the visitors, which was very popular. We had children's activities throughout the day. It included a bounce house, arts and crafts, and we had an infant room so parents could walk around and talk to people without the distractions, and the kids were entertained, and I think the kids had lots of fun. Every time I walked out, it was laughing and playing and everything. So we think it went really well. We want to do it again in the future, and we're thinking about every 2 years. We did it with a grant that the Office on Youth co-wrote with DSS to bring more parent training to the community, and we thought by letting them come in and visit with the providers and seeing what we actually offer is definitely training worthwhile for our citizens. We are on the tail end of our annual school supply donations. We started doing the donation drive July 24th through August 17th. We had donation bins again throughout the community. We had a bus at the Locust Grove Walmart. We had a bus at the Orange Burger King to do a Stuff the Bus, and we got tons of supplies. So the community was very, very generous with all of our bins and the Stuff the Bus. As of this afternoon, we have serviced 237 kids through the office and 50 kids in our Lake of the Woods area for 287 kids. This time last year was 265. So we still have plenty of supplies. I actually took a whole box over to one of the elementary schools today. The guidance counselors can call over. If we have stuff, we ship it over to them. So we'll keep that all year long so they can access those.
How do you decide, what's the criteria for being able to help these children?
They have a form they have to fill out, and they have to check what their need is. They can check Medicaid, SNAP, any type of things that go along with social service, and they have to show proof of that need.
Okay.
And no complaints. We started doing that last year. We had maybe 1 or 2 last year. This year, not a single complaint.
Okay.
So it worked really well. And we know there are extenuating circumstances where parents may not have any of that. Maybe dad just got laid off or something like that, and we'll talk to the parents and we'll work with them because we still want to make sure the kids have the supplies. And just some of the places that we have gotten donations from: Aerojet, the 4-H Benton Bridal Club, Blue Run Baptist, St. Thomas Episcopal, Lower Rapidan Church, all very, very generous this year with their employees and everybody bringing things in. St. Thomas actually gave us money just to go buy backpacks. So we gave out probably more backpacks this year than we did the past 2 years combined. So we were very pleased with that. Upcoming activities that we have that were not on the snapshot one of the things that our office is working for, last year I went down to Locust Grove Middle School and worked with one of the teachers on an all-girls program. It was kind of a mentoring self-esteem program. Like to get that down here this year at Prospect. Went really well, got really attached to those girls. It was nice to kind of get to know them and see the differences we made and everything. So our goal this year is to do that. It's called Girls Only. It can be anywhere from a 6 to 16-week program, however we decide, and I'll work with the principal and the guidance counselors on that. But it focuses on self-esteem, communication, violence, healthy bodies, creative arts, community, careers and jobs, and just so much more. So I'm really excited about that and get a chance to get back in and work with the kids a little bit more directly. So.
How do you fit it into the school schedule?
It'd be an after-school program. They do have activity buses that run in the afternoons, and so we would try to get it on one of those days. Any other questions?
Good.
Pretty short and sweet.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is the carry forward request from fiscal 15 to 16. Glenda Bradley, Finance Director. All right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in your packet you have a copy of the carry forward request to carry forward funds for projects that are in progress or grants that have crossed the end of the fiscal year. The total in request this year is $355,464.59. And of that amount, $238,478.59 would come from our general fund balance. An additional $77,000 would come from the landfill fund balance, and the remainder is in other funds, including the balance available in the forfeited asset funds, as well as some individual grants that are where the grant proceeds have not been received, but will be received on a reimbursement basis. Are there any questions about any of the carry forwards? I included a spreadsheet that I thought was a little easier to read than the reports out of the system.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. The big number on there was the regional jail. Is any comment about
That,
how that was triggered and so forth?
right, that particular one is $47,801, which was the estimate for Orange County's portion of debt service interest for the temporary financing that they did, that will be taken out when the state reimburses them for the state's portion of that project. I have not received a request for that, but I imagine one will be coming eventually. I'm not sure what their schedule is for the state reimbursement. And it may, it may not be that much.
So that's still an estimate, okay.
Right, but that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to go ahead and include it, so we don't have to appropriate it whenever that time comes.
Okay.
Any further questions? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Glenda. Next item, County Attorney's Report.
I have nothing.
Okay, County Administrator's Report.
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
New business, GIS. Stephanie. You didn't get a chance to tack your last time up here. Maybe we'll give you some time now.
Oh, be fair. With me tonight, I have some representatives from Timmins. This is Sarah Dennis and Russell Minnick. So they'll be assisting us in discussing the roadmap that they've outlined. As many of you know, in early April, I began a very cumbersome process of investigating how the county currently collects, processes, stores, and utilizes our GIS data. I interviewed multiple departments, including building, planning, 911, fire and EMS, commissioner, to figure out where we gather this information and where it goes. One thing that became very apparent is the different processes that we use now need to be streamlined. They're a little insufficient and cumbersome to use. And some of the immediate needs that I identified were replacing our current 911 addressing vendor, to clarify and reestablish a streamlined workflow for 911 addressing and the creation of the disbursement of our usable shapefiles, to create a complete platform for all GIS information throughout the county, to establish a viable solution for our sheriff's office, which is using the Eagle mapping system, and to create and implement data stewards and GIS governance principles for the entire county. With the support of the building department, 911, IT, and the sheriff's office in Timmins, we have actually taken care of the first two items on that list and are in the process of creating a temporary solution for number 4, which is the Eagle mapping issues with the sheriff's office. What I've come to you tonight to present is working with Timmins to create a comprehensive roadmap to tell us how to best move forward to streamline this process so it's usable for all departments. Timmins has over 60 years of experience and they specialize helping municipalities with this very issue. And in the proposal that was attached to my memo, they've broken this out into 2 different phases at our request, with the main objectives being to help us centralize the data, to help plan out a comprehensive workflow for our PSAP systems, to foster and clarify internal data sharing, external data sharing, which would be with the 2 towns, Orange and Gordonsville, to establish data stewards, GIS governance, and GIS education. Are there any questions about the 2 phases or the plan?
I have one question. When you mentioned the towns, since the towns are still using MSEC, what avenue is there of communications back and forth there? Is there one?
That's what we would try to establish.
Okay, because currently there's nothing, correct?
And well, currently the town of Orange does not show up on our
Right,
GPS.
and they're under MSEC, and we
Are no longer.
blew up, right, okay.
Is there any tie between that and the court records?
Yes, please forgive my very rudimentary map. They actually start with the courts, so our data starts with the courts, and then it goes to the Commissioner of Revenue currently. Then that goes to the building department and gets dispersed to many different locations with many different types of software and end uses. And that's what Timmins is gonna come in and address, that flow of data, where it needs to go, how it needs to be implemented, because right now we have so many different types of hardware and software, we're actually duplicating things that we really don't need to be duplicating. And several people are dispersing things that perhaps isn't the best workflow scenario. So that's really what they're gonna come in here and help us determine and provide that pathway forward.
What's the in-game vision? Are we going to have in essence, a GIS department and or function housed somewhere that would be the point for all matters GIS, or where are we headed?
That's gonna be part of their recommendation. They're really gonna look and see what we need now and help us decide, in the next 3, 5, 10 years, this is where we should be. So in that phase 2 of their proposal is setting out that long-range solution with budget estimates attached to it, so we know where to go and how to plan.
Maybe it's a question for you. Comparable counties such as ours, what's their solution look like, broadly speaking? Do they house everything in one place, or do they still have data entry going on all over the entire organization, these kind of things?
Typically, what we see is the data itself, physically, the storage of that is centralized. And then typically core data layers, such as your imagery and your road center lines and your addressing are stored and edited by a core. And then additional data, such as, maybe address points or stop signs or VDOT speed zones, all that sort of information can be then laid on top of that core data. The maintenance of those data sets really is dependent upon what the county capabilities have with respect to maintaining that data over long haul, what the system source of records are, and the data stewards, those people responsible for that. So what you'll find is you'll have a core set of data that's maintained by the core.
Typically an IT department.
Yeah, typically IT, planning has been in different places. We've seen it most successful typically in an IT environment because they're responsible for the other systems within the county as well that serve everyone. On top of that, other data is placed, again, based upon the data stewards for that particular data set.
But doesn't it, for example, property records, are the courts typically a data entry point into the system for those kinds, or do they get passed to Commissioner of Revenue or Planning and Zoning? I mean, I'm just, one of the, I know part of our system now is such that you have things that are either entered or not entered, in some cases, in lots of different places. And, I mean, is that the model that we need to keep, just to make it more efficient, or do we throw all that out and rethink the whole process?
Tippy.
I think what we're aiming for with this plan is that we're gonna streamline a workflow that goes from department to department and establishes someone who's responsible for each data set so that things are only entered once and you only have that happening one time, and you have a steward who is assigned ownership of that data. So they are the ones who are responsible for it. If another locality asks for data or anything like that, or someone in the county needs that data, you have a steward and you have GIS in a centralized location, and you can always say, why aren't my address points here, why aren't my parcels there, and you go to the correct person and you know what's going on because you have the workflow set up.
The ultimate objective is a single entry assignment of a data steward, which is the person that's responsible, single source of record, single entry. That's the goal.
Give us an idea of you have these base geospatial data, that, you know, one data source and all that. Then you have applications, use of that data, analysis and things. Give us an idea of, we just had a conversation here earlier about fire EMS response. Walk us through how we would have this base data and then how fire EMS would then be able to inform the board about response times and station sightings and things like that. You know, how would...
Sure.
So the way that works is your base data, in this case, we're going to use the road center line as one of your elements of your base data. On top of that, each center line has essentially what's called an impedance on it, which is, say, the speed zone, the speed limit. Okay, so the GIS has the capability to say, I'm starting at this point. I want to know how long it takes me to get to, or how far I can get in 15 minutes. Okay, so then what will happen is the GIS system will run across that spider network and create a polygon that represents the outer boundaries of a 15-minute response. Okay, so when we're looking at things like emergency response zones, or where the current emergency services are housed, and where should we be looking to put another one, you can identify where the current ones are. You can then say, what kind of coverage do we have in 20 minutes? And then you'll begin to see holes where the coverage is not covering in the 20 minutes or 15 minutes that you're looking at. What I was thinking about too is, the nice thing is once you're on a standard, which I think we're looking to use the ESRI products as a standard, you can also share this information with your neighbors. So part of what comes in an emergency response situation is reciprocal response. Okay, so that you'll be able to share response zones, and maybe you can get to somewhere quicker, or they can get to somewhere quicker in your county, your neighbor can, A good example of that is, we did a project a couple years ago, up in, it was called the, Regional Response Program up in Fairfax, Arlington, Alexandria, and we took all of their systems, because they were all using GIS, we put them all together and created a regional routable response network for them. So there's an example of how you can use the GIS.
When you're talking about speed data and stop signs and stuff like that, who enters that data?
So the information that you get with respect to the, where the stop signs are and the impedances on that, that information typically comes from the region, Virginia Geographic Information Network, as one of their data elements on those road cell lines.
What, a more immediate concern, MSAG has one set of measurements for all of their maps, and I've never picked any bones about this. MSAG was terrible. From day one, they were terrible. They had stuff wrong all the time. You all have another map set with different points on your maps. How are you going to either merge these and make them work? Or are you going to throw out what MSAG has and go with yours? Or are you going to throw yours out and go with MSAG's? Because I know there are many discrepancies between the two systems. How do you plan on taking care of that?
When you say discrepancies, are you talking about
Say-
location discrepancies?
Yes, say just this building, as an example. MSAG may show it sitting a quarter of a mile down the road with this address, and you may show it sitting here with the same address.
A building point, being in the same, showing up at two different locations on the imagery?
Well,
Not in the imagery, I think you know where I'm going with
yeah,
this.
I mean,
Okay.
what you're gonna do is typically, part of the process, the roadmap process that we're going through right now, is going to assess the data and say, okay, this data is good, this data is not good, or these elements of this data are good. So there may be a scenario where, to answer your question, you may use a combination of the
Okay.
data.
But it's something that you're
Locate-
fully aware of,
Yeah.
and
Locational, I'm
will
sorry.
get taken care of.
Yeah, locational wise, your base layer is your imagery. It is, you actually can, well, I know you're familiar with using Google Maps. Similar to
Right.
that, you get a location for the structure. Then you may pull elements or non-spatial data from, say, MSAG data and lay it on top of that same address, or included in that same address point as an attribute.
Okay, and will that hold true with the county lines as well, and all of your properties? I mean, I know I'm getting a little technical here,
Yeah.
but I'd just like to know how you handle these things.
We, actually, as part of the project about 2.5 years ago, we already migrated the CAD data that MSAG had for your parcel data and boundaries. We migrated that to Esri. And that's in a geodatabase format now, and that's what you see on our website, so that is more up to date.
Okay.
And that's what we'll be using.
Okay.
And, the planning department here maintains those and sends us updates. And they are creating a new map book for us as well.
Okay.
Will the Esri tools be available? Because I use that site some, and they have some terrific tools that you could use in terms of doing calculations and measurements and locating points and all these kind of things. I mean, is that feature either through the software that you're using, or as part of the Esri baseline, those kind of, because those are really nice capabilities to have. So I don't know what the plan is for those, but.
The website that we currently have up for the county, or the website that was up?
Well, the basic Esri tools are the ones I'm talking about. They're really
Yes.
powerful.
They're available.
All of our local government solutions are Esri based.
Any other questions?
Where I thought Jim was going with his question, let me ask just, do you see at this point a lot of new data that we have to either create or find a way of, creating, or are we in a situation where most of the data in one form or another is sort of lying around, just a matter of, you
I
know,
think it's lying around, it's not necessarily where it needs to be.
it's not usable in many cases.
Exactly,
So I mean,
exactly. That's,
what have you seen so far, I guess is my question.
So to answer the question, I'm thinking that there is a lot of data around and available. The accuracy and completeness of that data is what we're gonna be looking at as part of the project. So we don't have a defined answer for you at this point.
That'll be completed in phase 1.
okay, so it will be one of the earlier things.
Mr. Chairman, members, a couple observations. One, what we're trying to do is to sort through all this, and I think Stephanie's schematic here kind of set the tone. I had asked her to give me a chart of what we're going. We're going to try with Timmons' help, and I've had a long relationship with Timmons going back, with Russell maybe 20 years or so. And the state of the practice in this technology has changed dramatically in just the last 10 years, let alone back 20 years. And what we're trying to do is to, with their expertise and help and with our departments, to get a roadmap literally that then informs a CIP, an operating budget. So, you know, those numbers can get, we're not talking about insignificant sums to get a fully implemented GIS system for our county, meaning it's sized and it's capable for our county. It's not a small community, not a large community. I'm, you know, kind of going for the just right fit and affordable with our resources. So this just gets us going down that road to kind of getting our arms around all this and getting this chart that she's put together in I think a little bit more of a format we can all follow.
Do you see that there are data sets that other jurisdictions that use that we would not use?
I don't think we're prepared to answer that question at this
Okay.
point, because we really need to go through that process.
Okay. How about, let's say, data sets that highly urbanized areas use that rural areas don't?
There are definitely
There are
types
some.
of data sets. They have polygons that pick up how far those new tools can pick up a gunshot. For instance, they'll have a polygon that
Okay.
describes that, but it's not something that we're gonna be
Yeah.
looking at here.
We've done a lot of different view sheds on routes of people, you know, where dignitaries are driving and where you need to put people. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that can go into there.
Okay.
Essentially, what we're talking about is designing, this is gonna give you a roadmap to design the base or what you need to continue on with your GIS development. And then, as Brian said, we're gonna look at the applications and say, all right, what makes sense for Orange County?
Okay.
Given what you're trying to accomplish, your 5-year plans,
Okay.
your goals, your population, all those things.
Okay.
And we do, as part of this, we do an educational presentation to open up your minds, basically, of what you see in other districts, other counties. So you see what kind of layers they're using in a more rural situation or a Fairfax type situation. So we show you what your neighbors are doing and we show you some best practices.
Okay.
And then we give everybody a survey to say, what data do you think that we need?
All right, okay.
What should we do going forward?
Okay, I was
to make
just
that?
wondering how customer focused this was going to be.
I think a couple applications that would come to mind, certainly public safety is gonna come really in at the top of the list pretty quickly. I think our economic development and tourism applications to better data inform where and how and what. So I think that's some things, and then utilities, and then certainly our plan.
Well, one of the things, of course, in each new application, you've got to talk about how your data is going to get in there, and whether or not understanding what it takes to enter the data versus the payback, because you could find yourself with a lot of data entries and not getting much out of it. So that's the kind of thing I was concerned about.
These folks are very familiar with public domain data, and that's the first go-to on any of these things.
Okay.
Something we can get for free, or low cost.
At what point do we need a resolution of how the two towns play, if at all, in this process? I mean, is that critical to your early thinking about this, or do we wait and show them the potential and let them decide later? Because if we need to engage them early, it'd be nice to know that.
What we've discussed previously is trying to involve the two towns and have open a discussion of how they can interact, how we can use each other's data. You know, can we have a, cooperative exchange of data and set up some type of workflow where everybody does exchange and work together on the same data?
And is that typical that they agree to
Sometimes
collaborate?
towns and counties, some collaborate, some don't.
The objective is,
It's usually where the piece
I mean,
is.
the overall objective is to gain collaboration, to gain participation, because in the end game, it helps all of the folks in the county, no matter whether you live in a city or a town, or just the county, or in the county itself. So the objective really is, we try to be as helpful as possible in engaging potential partners so that they understand the value and are hopefully willing to participate. If you can get participation and you can get it earlier on, that's always a good thing, because then they're more vested in the solution later on.
Well, in our case, though, there's a lot of shared services that,
Right.
that exist,
So,
particularly in public safety and areas like that.
And that's why we wanted to include it as one of the objectives of phase one.
In terms of such information as properties with easements or special use permits or other ordinance related things, is that something that is possible to show up on this, or have you not seen that before?
is that it's included as part of the attribute
Usually it's
information?
parcel data.
Yeah.
Some localities have software that automates the permitting process and integrates it with the GIS. That's one thing that we can look for as a potential, if that's something that you're interested in, which will come out in the interviews. A lot of people do integrate their permitting into their GIS.
Okay.
It could be its own point, or it could be an attribute of the parcel.
Yeah, I mean, it would be useful, I think, to understand what is on there, if it isn't too much trouble to put it in.
You all are Munis friendly, correct?
Okay. Any other questions? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Look
All
forward
in
to moving forward with it.
What's that?
I look forward to getting moving with it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I
Thank
just want to recognize Stephanie took a pretty daunting task.
I'm aware of that. It's
All
just,
you gotta do is look at the road map there.
Just drawing that one picture.
I had to add that.
okay. Next item is the Wilderness Library renovation.
You've been busy.
Yes, sir. As you're aware, in our current CIP, Project C-1013 includes the renovation of the Wilderness Library. For the FY16 budget year, we discussed replacing carpet, paint, and lights in the 21-year-old structure. As we dove into this renovation process, what's involved, some unique opportunities presented themselves. One of them was the option to actually restructure. It's really difficult and cumbersome to actually move shelves and change the layout of a library unless everything is out, which it would be for the painting and the carpet. So we actually worked with a specialized shelving vendor Katie did all the work to actually come up with the new layout of the library, and we are actually proposing to add the shelving layout to this project in this phase and defer the lighting to next year's CIP. The T12 fluorescent fixtures are an issue throughout the county, and Erin's working very diligently with vendors to find some retrofit kits to install because they're just not making T12 equipment anymore.
Why don't we look at the LEDs?
That's what,
That's-
yeah.
Okay.
So we have a brief PowerPoint just to sort of go over exactly the changes to the scope that we're presenting this evening. As you're aware, Wilderness Library was constructed in 1994, and it still has the original carpet, paint, lights, and layout. Our goal for this project was to create a modern, welcoming feel for the public, to extend the useful life of the library, and repurpose those shelves. We are retrofitting and adding on 2 shelves and purchasing just a very small number of new shelves, particularly for the AV section. And also increase the AV and computer areas and replace the worn out fixtures and furnishings. Here's some of the carpets. It's very dismal. it's pretty disgusting. And cracks in the walls that would of course be patched and painted. I couldn't resist more carpet pictures. These are an example of the shelves. So they're actually going to be shifting the layout of the shelves, and those very green end panels will be replaced. They're actually just laminate that literally is unscrewed, and you can put new laminate on. So that's included in part of this project. There's some more of the shelving. So Katie actually worked with a vendor who not only installs the shelving, Mellows, but they helped design it. So they worked with her and her staff to figure out the reconfigured use of the space. Here's an example of some of the new carpet selection that they chose, which has earth tones, very neutral, gonna last another 15, 20 years. And next to that is the end panel selection of laminate, again, very neutral, looking for long-term use. And some of the shelves are actually going to be, what do you call that, Katie? Slat wall, so they can actually put displays on the end. Also through E-rate monies, Katie was able to purchase very nice furniture. The furniture in there was needed to be replaced. So she got some new chairs, tables, these unique laptop. This one chair has the laptop swivel that comes up, so folks can work, bring their devices, do homework, work on other projects. Very clean, modern, welcoming feel. Working with Buildings and Grounds, we have put forth a proposed schedule. It's 3 weeks. It's shifted a little bit from what you see here due to vendor availability. But essentially what is going to happen is we propose renting large shipping containers. They will be placed on premise. We will work with our staff to move what we can in there, such as desks, office equipment that the public doesn't use. The library will close on a Friday, and staff from other branches will come in. We are having carts delivered where you actually can number them and put, okay, this shelf, these books go on this cart. We can wheel them out to the shipping containers so everything stays organized. So all hands on deck for that project. After that, the shelving vendor comes in. They have to disassemble, wrap everything, label it, and move that into the shipping containers. Then the painters come in, the carpet install comes in, shelving comes back in, is assembled correctly in the new layout, end panels are put on, and books are reshelved in the library. So our original project budget was $69,575. That is included in this year's CIP. Additional contributions have been provided from the Friends of the Wilderness Library and the Orange County Library Foundation. And I was able to use to find unspent balances from other projects in the CIP that have been completed to increase our overall budget. And currently, if no prices change, we will be a little bit of money left over.
But now that's deferring the lighting And,
The lighting is the only thing that would be deferred at this time. Additional, items may perhaps include data drops and electrical work and some miscellaneous furniture and accessories. Those are all budgeted for in Katie's E-rate budget, so that does not use, CIP monies at all for those items. They're E-rate eligible.
My only question or concern with delaying the lighting, a lot of those shelving units basically interfere with working up in the ceiling area of that library. How much is that going to add to the cost of coming back later and doing the lighting work?
They would make it a little more challenging, but these retrofit kits, you're not actually pulling the entire fixture out of the ceiling.
Right.
You just drop everything out, and it should be just the few lights that are gonna be directly over the shelves are gonna be a little challenging. Should.
So it's not going to make a major impact financially?
And we walked the floor with the vendor just to make
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
And to keep in mind, LED technology is progressing further and further, so I would assume that any increased expense would be deferred, completely
Okay.
by the increased cost.
any further questions? I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second?
No, I thought, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Old business, schedule a public hearing for the SUP 1501.
Mr. Chairman, since Josh is not here, I'll just take this, but as you recall, you've had partially advanced this through the process earlier this year. It was tabled by the board due to the Section 106 review. That has been completed now, and I think the county attorney would have some information, given the changes to the way the application stands now versus what was presented to you earlier on, and what your all's options are in that regard.
Yeah, what happened is the Section 106 is this negotiation between the state agency and the developer of or whoever wants to use the pole. And what they did is they actually came to an agreement on some impact reductions, lowered the height of the tower, I think 25 feet, agreed that the light, remember the light was a big issue, that the light would have to be manually turned on and turned off, and would only be turned on when they've got a medevac coming in. And so based on that, Josh asked me, do we have to have another public hearing? We probably do not have to have another public hearing. My recommendation would be to have one, simply because it's been so long and we gotta put it on the agenda anyway for action, and so that way, in case anybody wants to speak, I know a lot of people did come and speak on that. But you aren't technically required to put it again to public hearing, because you already have had a public hearing on it, and all of the impacts are actually reduced, so there's no increase in impacts here.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm a little confused, because the board never held a public hearing.
We did not play?
No.
No,
Planning
we've got no
Commission.
further-
Planning
Only
Commission.
planning commission, okay, well then we do have to hold one.
Yeah, and I would jump in and say, I don't think we need to run this back through the planning commission.
And I
prefer
wouldn't
not
suggest
to.
running it back to the planning commission. I don't see any reason to do that. Again, the changes aren't that significant.
Yeah, we're going decreasing in impacts.
Yes.
Now, it'd be a different discussion if you were increasing and there was a lot of adjoining property owner concerns. And things.
Yeah, if it was an increase in impact, it would be a big difference, but since everything's a decrease, I mean, the issues everybody's, well, the light was the thing everybody was the view sheds, which I guess 25-foot reduction is some improvement on the view shed concern that people had. But there's no real reason to run it back through planning.
I'd make a motion to go ahead and schedule the board public hearing
Got a date?
Earliest.
early as possible, yes.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next,
And when will that be, by the way? Do we know?
It would be the September 22nd meeting.
September 22nd? Okay.
7 p.m.
okay. All right, any board comment?
Yes, actually, I have one thing. I went to the APCO Awards last week, which are the Communications Center Awards. And they actually had their convention in Washington. They had over 20,000 attendees. Very large. I feel remiss for not knowing that they had such a large organization. They had, it was not just national, it was international. And I'm sure it'll be on one of our future meetings, but Orange County is one of the first 6 counties in the Commonwealth of Virginia to get their P33 certification, which means that they meet all of the standards that should be met by a communications center. And it's a whole lot of work went in by the communication staff, led by Nikki, and it's something that the county should be very proud of. When they did a total of the entire nation, they only had 20 people get their certification awards at their meeting. So quite an effort.
Okay. Any other comment? Okay, any questions about the informational items? Okay, next is appointments to boards, commissions, and committees.
I would have Jackie Samuels to be appointed or recommended for Board of Equalization for District 3.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I can't complete the list. I'm waiting.
You tried to steal somebody, but
I tried to
deal.
Well, no, I have somebody that I'm going to start twisting the other arm because I was supposed to get a response before this meeting and I haven't yet. So
What was your nominee?
Jack Samuels.
Jack Samuels.
Jack Samuels.
Oh, okay, all right.
I would also look to have Ms. Paisley reappointed for Youth Commission at large, since she wants to serve.
Okay. Any others? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Calendar. Any questions on the calendar? Okay.
Ready for me?
Could you read your,
All right. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Orange County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following matters: consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. And whereas pursuant to section 2.23711A7 of the Code of Virginia, such discussion may occur in closed meeting, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Orange County does hereby authorize discussion of the aforesaid in closed meeting.
do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're in close.
Try and do that by memory one day.
Members of the board, to the best of your knowledge,
Oh,
were
we
the
all
only
standing
matters
up?
discussed in the closed meeting, public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and that only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting.
Could you repeat that?
Mr. White?
Aye.
Mr. Crozier?
Aye.
Mr. Crane?
Aye.
Mr. Goodwin?
Aye.
And Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Oh, we need a second for the record.
I got it for you.
Okay.